So let's continue with Wednesday's top speaker. Please welcome Sarah Joyce Diehl with her thesis, Let's Turn Our Vapes into Vapor. Let's give her a hand.
On August 15th, 2019, 18-year-old Sima Herman couldn't breathe and was rushed to the hospital by her father. X-rays revealed white hazy areas at the bottom of her lungs. 2 days later, the inflammation had spread, filling her lungs with fluid. The doctor inferred it could be a reaction to vaping, but Herman lay in bed unable to breathe for 2 days. She used a ventilator, but shortly afterwards had to be put into a medically induced coma. Sima's cousin then decided to tell Mr. and Mrs. Herman the truth. You know she smokes every day. She smokes that vape, she said. Sima woke from her coma after being in the hospital for 5 days. When she was able to speak, she recounted the pain, saying, I just remember feeling like absolute nothing. Like I couldn't do anything. I just wanted to crawl out of my skin. She continued to say, I didn't think of myself as a smoker, but it's just a different kind of smoke. The vaping makes it seem like nothing, like you're doing nothing wrong. Sima Herman started vaping at age 15. She'd walk into a smoke shop, ask for a pack of Juul pods, lie about her age, and leave with a vape in her mouth. Her addiction grew to an entire Juul pod a day, the nicotine equivalent to a full pack of cigarettes. Before her addiction, she was a healthy, competitive dancer, but as her vape dependency grew, her health weakened. She lost 50 pounds in 2 years and was often dizzy and nauseous. Miss Herman was caught in the e-cigarette snare, thinking it was harmless till the day she almost died. E-cigarettes were the cause for Sima's hospitalization. These are battery-operated devices used to inhale an aerosol, typically containing nicotine, flavorings, and various other ingredients. They have 4 components: the cartridge, which holds the e-liquid, a heating element to vaporize and emit the solution, a power source, usually a battery, and a mouthpiece. Upon inhalation, the nicotine releases adrenaline, triggering the body's fight or flight mode. This increases heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing, and releases dopamine. These hormones cause a pleasurable feeling that can lead to addiction. From 2011 to 2019, teen e-cigarette use rose almost 2,000%. From 2017 to 2019, the percentage of high school students who vaped in the last month more than doubled among seniors, sophomores, and 8th graders. A survey conducted in 2019 found that 5 million U.S. middle and high schoolers alone vaped in the past 30 days. In 2018, 1 in 20 Americans vaped, and a third of users vape daily. Today, 1 in 5 Americans aged 18 to 29 use e-cigarettes. In 2019, Republican Representative Rick Miller proposed House Bill 4013, which proposes a 10% retail tax on all vapes and e-cigarette products. This bill was widely popular in committee, with 8 upvotes to 0 down. However, a point of order was called, which states that tax bills must be created in the House, not the Senate. The bill failed and hasn't come up since. In order to reduce the appeal of e-cigarettes, the state of Texas should pass House Bill 4013 in the House rather than the Senate. The first reason to pass this bill is that vapes are unhealthy. Secondly, the second reason to reduce the appeal of vapes is that it will increase state revenue and save money for both vapors and non-vapors. And lastly, there's already a tax precedent for smoking that has successfully reduced consumption in the past. Reducing the appeal of e-cigarettes will improve the health of vaping Texans by reducing the number of lung injuries, heart diseases, brain development defects, and deaths. To help you better understand the dangers of vaping, I will first describe the body's reactions to inhaling e-liquid, and then discuss the specific ingredients contained in a vape. The long-term health effects are unknown, but the short-term effects are clear. If I were to vape right now, I would experience increased airway reactivity and resistance in my lungs, as well as increased heart rate, blood pressure, and aortic stiffness. Increased airway reactivity is called a bronchial spasm, resulting in coughing, wheezing, and shortness of breath. Increased airway resistance traps the air in my lungs, limiting oxygen flow and potentially causing respiratory failure. Increased heart rate and blood pressure are linked to hypertension and cardiovascular disease. Repeated e-cigarette exposure causes inflammation, irritation, and oxidative stress. The irritation and inflammation I would experience are the immediate effects of one puff from a vape product. Now, this one puff wouldn't send me straight to the ER, but 10 puffs daily for the next year could. Secondly, let's discuss what's contained in a vape. A common misconception is that vapes are healthier than cigarettes because they don't emit smoke. They emit a vapor, which gives the connotations of water, making teens think it's harmless. However, this vapor is actually an aerosol filled with toxins. According to a toxicology report, e-cigarette aerosols contain nicotine, flavorings, propylene glycol and glycerol, tobacco-specific nitrosamines, aldehydes, metals, volatile organic compounds, phenolic compounds, free radicals, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, tobacco alkaloids, and drugs. I'd like to highlight just two of these, free radicals and nicotine. Free radicals are molecules with an odd number of electrons, causing them to steal electrons from other molecules, thus making more free radicals. Reactive oxygen species, or ROS, is a form of free radicals found abundantly in e-cigarette products. ROSs cause oxidative stress, damaging our health, our metabolism, and cellular differentiation, which in turn cause several respiratory, cardiovascular, and neurodegenerative diseases, such as asthma, Parkinson's disease, and atherosclerosis. ROSs also cause rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, and some types of cancer. Reactive oxygen species are dangerous ingredients found in vape products. Now let's discuss nicotine. Nicotine is a substance as addictive as heroin or cocaine. E-cigarettes contain varying levels of nicotine from 0 milligrams per milliliter to 36 milligrams per milliliter. Each vape containing nicotine exposes the user to health risks. The immediate effects of nicotine are increased breathing, blood pressure, and heart rate. Within 10 seconds of inhaling the stimulant, the brain releases dopamine, but it quickly subsides, causing the teen to take another hit. Repeated nicotine exposure causes brain development defects. Nicotine also hinders the brain, Nicotine also hinders attention, memory, and learning abilities in anyone under age 25 because their brain is not fully developed. The long-term health effects of nicotine are increased risk of cancer and nicotine poisoning. In an overall look at vapes, almost 3,000 people have been hospitalized for severe lung illnesses, and 68 of them have died. These numbers may seem small, but they cannot be ignored. Right now, the full effects of e-cigarettes are still unknown. Right now, putting a vape to your mouth is like navigating yourself through a minefield, while only able to see through the cracks at the bottom of a blindfold. We can continue to walk blindly, not knowing where the next bomb lies, or we can pass House Bill 4013, discouraging people from entering the minefield at all. The second reason to pass House Bill 4013 is that it will increase state revenue and save Americans thousands. When the bill was projected in 2019, When the bill was proposed in 2019, it was projected to bring in at least $16.6 million in its first year. And by September of 2021, it was projected to bring in at least $20 million a year. This 10% tax will increase state revenue, helping fund public schools. This will allow for more low-income families to attend school, and it will increase the bilingual program, the special education program, and teacher training. House Bill 4013 will accomplish all this while deterring thousands of Texans from using vape products. Now, the bill won't only raise money, but it will also keep insurance premiums low. Whenever a smoker applies for health insurance, they have to check the smoker box. Now, they have two options: ignore the box and pretend like they don't smoke, or check the box and increase their insurance. Lying about being a smoker is insurance fraud, which can result in community service, probation, and even jail time, as well as having to pay past surcharges and a loss of health insurance benefits. On the other hand, checking yes increases a smoker's home insurance, health insurance, and life insurance. It increases home insurance by $60 a month. That's an extra $720 a year. According to the Affordable Care Act, it increases health insurance companies can increase a smoker's health insurance by 50%. 41 states take advantage of this, including Texas. So an individual who would normally pay $456 per month now pays $684 per month for health insurance. And lastly, vaping increases life insurance by 2 or 3 times. For a hypothetical example, let's take my thesis teachers, Mr. Donaldson and Mr. Hanberg, who are both male and around 35. However, Mr. Donaldson vapes regularly, and Mr. Hanberg does not. Mr. Hanberg pays $30 a month for his life insurance, but Mr. Donaldson pays more than triple that, $94 a month. By the time my teachers are 55, Mr. Hanberg will pay $150 per month, but poor Mr. Donaldson has continued his vaping ways, costing him $545 monthly. Clearly, my thesis did not convince him of the dangers of vapes. So it's clear to see that vaping can take money from the smoker's wallet. But what's not so clear is that it can take Benjamins from your wallet. Let's create another hypothetical situation. You're working for a company that requires you to apply for health insurance. This would be a group plan where everyone pays the same rate. However, the insurance companies have to take into account the percentage of the group that are smokers. They assume 14% are smokers because that is the nation's average smoking percentage. From this, they created a weighted average rate, which everyone must pay. The assumed smokers in your group are increasing your insurance even though you don't smoke or vape. House Bill 4013 will increase state revenue and decrease the number of vaping Texans, saving money for us all. And lastly, taxes work to decrease tobacco-related consumption in the past. Throughout my speech, I have said that the 10% tax proposed in House Bill 4013 will reduce the number of vaping Texans. This will prove successful because it was successful in the past with cigarettes. Research shows that the strongest influences reducing tobacco use are those that affect the smoker repeatedly, such as taxes. Cigarette taxation and cigarette consumption are inversely proportional. As one goes up, the other goes down. Now, I recognize that cigarette taxes were not the sole reason for cigarettes following the seesaw trend, but that public awareness also served as a key influence. Nevertheless, a 10% increase in tax reduces consumption by 4% among adults and 7% among youth. House Bill 4013's 10% tax is a solid starting place for the reduction of vape consumption. Several countries have experienced this seesaw motion between taxes and consumption, including the U.S. The federal tax on tobacco started at 7 cents in 1951 and grew to 24 cents per pack by 1993. Before any heavy taxes, each smoker in America consumed 3,500 cigarettes. That would be like smoking 10 cigarettes or half a pack each day for a whole year. But by 1990, that number fell just below 2,500 and will continue dropping to 1,000 cigarettes in 2015. Patterns between cigarette consumption and cigarette taxation can also be observed in other countries, such as Poland and Germany, who followed a similar trend to America, or China and Russia, who followed opposite trends. From 1980 to 2015, Poland's cigarette consumption declined from 3,500 cigarettes to 1,000, and Germany's declined from 2,500 to 1,200. Both Poland and Germany's cigarette consumption per capita declined over the years. On the other hand, in just 20 years, China increased their consumption from 700 cigarettes per smoker to 2,000, and Russia increased theirs from 1,500 to 3,300. In this case, both China and Russia's cigarette consumption per capita increased over the years. Now let's look at the tax these countries hold. China implements a 40% retail tax on cigarettes, which may seem high, but compared to the rest of the world is well below the mean 65 to 70%. And Russia's is even lower, staying at 33%. Whereas the nearby countries, Poland and Germany, implement a 79 and 76% retail tax on cigarettes respectively. Poland and Germany have a high cigarette tax, and their consumption declined, whereas China and Russia have a low cigarette tax, and their consumption climbed. So it's clear to see that patterns between cigarette consumption and cigarette taxation has occurred over several different countries. However, vape consumption and vape taxes are not as simple. For one, they've only been around for 17 years. For another, only 22 out of our 50 states implement any form of taxation. and these tax prices can vary from a 5-cent tax to a 95% wholesale tax on the price of vapes. House Bill 4013 proposes a 10% tax, which is significantly less than cigarette taxes today. That is because cigarette taxes start low and slowly increased over time. If you remember, the U.S.'s first tax on cigarettes was 7 cents, only 2 cents higher than today's lowest vape tax. The fact is, vapes are still new, and so is the research regarding specifically what tax will cause the greatest reduction in vape consumption. However, we can look at Connecticut, a state that implements a 10% wholesale tax on vapes, as well as a 40-cent per milliliter tax on pre-filled e-liquid. This state, with a 10% tax, has the third lowest crude prevalence rate, 3.2. If we pass House Bill 4013, we can observe the effects of a 10% tax and adjust it accordingly, rather than dumping a 95% tax on people out of the blue. Taxes have worked to discourage smokers in the past, and they can discourage vapors today. With all this being said, you may be wondering, why not just ban the commercial sale of vapes? Well, this wouldn't actually fix the problem due to the immediate and drastic change. In the 1920s, when alcohol was suddenly prohibited, people didn't just stop drinking. They used illegal methods to acquire the substance. The same reactions would follow if we were to suddenly ban vape products, because people would still have the same desire for nicotine as before. This will increase the use of traditional cigarettes, which are more dangerous than e-cigarettes, killing 480,000 Americans a year. The FDA has approved several successful nicotine replacement treatments, such as skin patches, chewing gum, lozenges, and counseling. These are more likely to help a user quit nicotine completely. Vapes are not included in this list because their effects are unknown and inconsistent. There's also an argument that can be made that vapes help a smoker quit smoking. And if vapes are hard to acquire, then they won't be as compelled to use them as a method to quit their addiction. However, this is a good thing. You see, smokers are addicted to the nicotine in a pack of cigarettes. But one Juul pod is equivalent to the nicotine in 1 pack of cigarettes. So how would this help a smoker quit their addiction? It wouldn't. All it's doing is moving them from one form of nicotine to another. So although they have stopped smoking cigarettes, they still smoked vapes. And in several cases, vapes have backfired, causing the user to smoke both traditional and electronic cigarettes. The effects of vapes are unknown and inconsistent, so we should not use them as a method to help smokers quit their nicotine addiction. Texas should pass House Bill 4013 to reduce the appeal of vapes. This will improve the health of vaping Texans. It will increase state revenue and put money back in all of our pockets. And thirdly, taxation has proven successful in the past. On August 15, 2019, Sima Herman realized the dangers vapes posed when she almost lost her life to them. The moment she opened her eyes, coming out of her coma, she asked for a piece of paper and a pen. She silently scribbled 8 words on a page and turned them to her parents, reading, "I want to start a no vaping campaign." It took a near-death experience to pull Sima out of her addiction, but today she's a year and a half sober. We need to make teens less comfortable with the idea of inhaling an aerosol into their lungs. It's better to not light the flame at all than to try to contain a wildfire in your hands. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, on Sarah's panel, we have Amber Compton. Long ago, Amber graduated from Duke University and enjoyed a career in technology marketing and public relations. She left that industry to become manager of the Compton household, a challenging but rewarding position she's held since 2003. Matt Thomas is an entrepreneur and engineer, having served in executive leadership roles at several high-tech firms in Austin. He's an avid reader, despite being an Aggie, and enjoys outdoor activities of all types. Matt and his wife, Andrea, live an almost literal stone's throw from here and have 5 kids. Veritas graduates Jacob and Emma, now sophomores at A&M, Jane, a Veritas 7th grader, and twin 7-year-olds Charlotte and Nevi. Andy Crone married his high school sweetheart, Kate, and dragged her to Austin in 1992, where they have raised their 4 daughters, all of whom love his famous dad jokes. After 15 years in the semiconductor industry, he started a second career teaching at Veritas, where he is now finishing up year number 12. With his favorite color being purple, he loves serving as the dean of the House of Bonhoeffer, the house which claims 3 of the final Fourum presenters this evening. Troy Schupknecht is the husband of Stevie and father of 4 younger Veritas defenders. He holds a bachelor's degree in biology and an MDiv in Christian ministry. After teaching high school science in public schools, he has worked in administration at Veritas for the past 13 years. Though he has never vaped, he dreams of a day when he could pick up such a habit and smoke circles. Make smoke circles. We call them smoke rings. That's fine. Okay, so the floor is open. Smoke circles?
Thanks, Sarah. Nice job. Hey, I wanted to just start with just trying to quantify how big the problem is compared to cigarettes. So you mentioned some numbers. I think I did quick math, and it said roughly about 1.5% of Americans use vapes daily. That was from a recent study. I kind of took your numbers and in comparison to cigarettes, at their peak, how big of a problem is this?
So it's not as big as cigarettes were in numbers-wise, but since vapes are drawing this new generation of kids and teens and even middle schoolers, this forms and makes them even a bigger problem than cigarettes were, because they still have the health effects that cigarettes were, but the percentages of people smoking cigarettes versus smoking vapes are not quite the same because they haven't been around as long enough.
Great job, Sarah. So, kind of a follow-up to that. You said, I think I missed the numbers, 300 hospitalized?
3,000.
3,000, that's more. And how many died?
68.
In how many years?
That would have been over the 17 years that they've been around.
Okay. So I'm curious, where does that land vapes on the whole, scale of dangerous things that, it's probably not a leading cause of death amongst people in that age group. Do you have any idea, where it falls?
So I don't think you can really quantify that by the numbers that are given, because they've only been around for a short period of time. Like if we were to take cigarettes from just their first 17 years, you would see that the numbers matched up and they didn't seem like they posed such a big threat. But with vapes, since they are already showing these health effects and the same ones that are in cigarettes, like they have cancer-causing chemicals, just like cigarettes do. And so since we've already seen what's happened with cigarettes, we can assume that will happen with vapes. And instead of letting it go as far as it did with cigarettes, we can cut it short and stop it now.
Great job tonight. If this is posing such a significant problem, it seems that implementing a 10% tax is a very mild solution. So I guess one question might be, why not immediately implement a much, much higher punitive tax rate like we have done with cigarettes? I know you said 10%, you want to sort of ease people into it, but it seems as though you're wanting to actually put a stop to this early. Have you looked at what the implications might be of a much higher tax rate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if we were to start with a much higher tax, this would cause kind of the same effects of banning it. People would draw to the cigarettes, which are more dangerous, like I said, and this will increase the black market use. Whereas if we start with a 10% tax, we can slowly increase it over time, which is what every other kind of like alcohol did it, cigarettes did it, soft drinks did it, and I have a study shown from University of Chicago that shows that these graphs are directly improportional. So as the tax started low and slowly increased, the consumption decreased with that same rate of proportionality. So we could feasibly start slightly higher at like 15%, but I wouldn't do this because it's not we have a practical solution. Like we have 10% showing evidence that it works by reducing consumption by 4% and 7%. And I'd rather err on the side of caution because we have these numbers. And then since it's practical with the House bill that has already been proposed, we can just pass it again rather than trying to create a new bill or legislation.
Just a follow-up on that. Rather than having to go back to the House and increase it, 10% in another 5 years, could you do a policy that's a little bit of a gradual one? So it's 10% this year, another 10% in 2 years. Is that something that you considered or looked at?
I didn't really look into how the bill, how you could do that in a bill. I was more focusing on the effects of the 10% tax, but you could implement that. But I don't know if there'd be much, I don't think that would change much in the long run. It'd still be increasing over time. That would just be an easier way, yes. So that'd be a good thing.
Is that, Sarah, is that 10% tax on the Juul, or is that also on the equipment as well?
It is every e-cigarette or vape product out there, so it would be the e-liquid, e-juice, e-cartridges, the vape pens, vape box, disposables, so everything that's vape related.
And maybe the most cost-efficient way for a person to vape is to buy a vape product that you just replace the Juul. Is that correct? I'm not a vapor, so is that the right term?
Yeah. It would make the most sense to buy something like a vape box, but these are more expensive at like $80, and then you would have to replace your e-liquid every so often whenever you run out.
But that's perfect, because I'm going to be in this for the long term. So
Good,
I want to buy a nice and then just replace the. What I'm getting at is the cost of that consumable Juul. What is the cost of that? Because if that's the thing I'm going to buy over the long term, how big is that 10% tax really on me?
It's going to be about $15 to $20.
For a Juul?
Yes. So disposable vapes are $20, and these run out in 2 days. So you're going to be buying lots of them if you're on a heavy addict. But if you are just using your Juul box and replacing it, then you have a lot more control over the e-liquid you consume. So you can basically, the money on that varies, but it would be close to the $10 to $20 of the disposable vape too.
Okay, thank you.
Don't worry, you'll be blowing smoke circles in no time. Mr. Thomas.
So on the anti-smoking and smoking cessation, it seems as though a lot of the factors that were effective were not just the tax rate, but also the sort of anti-smoking campaigns, the removal of that sort of coolness factor, cooperation from Hollywood, all these kinds of things. Why not attack the problem from that direction instead of putting a regulatory tax on it? Why not attack some of the other things too, like the flavors that come with vaping that make it very attractive for especially younger vapors? Have you looked at the alternatives to the tax proposal to see how they might be perhaps even more effective in accomplishing your goal?
Yes, so if we were to just do the advertising and ban the positive advertisements and replace it with the negative, it wouldn't do as an effective job as a tax. Like, how often do you see a car commercial and then go out and buy a car that has all these great upgrades? So the advertising isn't necessarily punishing them, whereas the 10% tax, you feel the physical weight of your actions, and it'll build up over time. And sorry, what was the other one you asked about?
Well, also perhaps regulation aimed at eliminating some of the other attractive benefits, like the flavors that they come in, their availability, widespread, some of those kinds of things too.
So they've tried that, and as we have seen, it hasn't put a dent into the problem. They've banned mint and fruit flavors in just the specific kinds, the cartridge and the e-liquid. So this hasn't actually done anything so far. People are just saying it's menthol or calling it by a different name. So just banning the flavors, as we've seen, it's happened and it's not doing anything. And like with tobacco, that doesn't have a good taste, but people are still using it.
You may have shared this. What's the average age of a vapor?
The biggest range is from 18 to 29.
So not necessarily younger than that. We're talking about people that have jobs potentially and are employed. So they're using
Yes.
their own money, not their parents' money, let's say, to
Yes.
buy these vapes. So a 10% tax would then affect them more than middle schoolers using mom and dad's money. When they started implementing taxes for cigarettes in the US, not necessarily Poland and Germany, do you know what the average age of a cigarette user was at that time or over time?
I did not look into the specific age, but it was the population was more over 18 than it was under, whereas vapes they don't have more younger, but they do have a higher under 18 age than smoking did.
Speaking of the olden days, I didn't want to do the math, so I'm going to ask you to do it for me. 7 cents was what percent of those
It would
back
have
then?
been about a 10%
It was
tax
about the
today.
same? Okay, cool. That was an easy one.
So, again, to use the smoking analogy, one of the big arguments that was made against it were the negative effects of secondhand smoke. And the effects on unborn babies in the womb, these kinds of things. And those were proven scientifically to have very negative consequences. I haven't seen that data on vaping. Perhaps it's there. I don't think that it is. So if we go down the path of assuming that there really aren't as many secondhand negative effects to those around you, how would you answer someone who is a current vape user who says, hey, it's my decision, it's not the government's job to regulate what I do with my own body, and I'm not hurting anyone by doing this vaping, and I won't get addicted. I'm an infrequent user. You shouldn't be punishing me with this so-called sin tax that you're wanting to put on it. What would you say to that person?
So just to clarify, did you say that they were saying that they won't get addicted?
Let's say that they throw that out there, or even if they say, I might get addicted, but that's my business, not yours as the government. Leave me alone and let me do what I want to do. What's your response to that?
I mean, it is their choice in the long run, but like I said, it does affect other people, not through the health part, but through the money part, because they have to, when they apply for health insurance, they have to check the smoker box. And that will increase the group plans, and with the more vapors we have, that will increase the smoking percentage. So it will actually affect everyone else here, just not in the health-related issues. But like if I was talking specifically to them and concerned for them, then I would list all of the health effects and basically give them my whole thesis.
And I'm assuming you would also say that it is addictive.
Yes, it is as addictive as heroin or cocaine, like I said. But
Great, thank you.
So to follow up on that syntax idea, so smoking is bad. It's addictive. And if I tax it, I receive a benefit. As long as I'm not smoking. I mean, I quit long ago. So if I can tax that behavior, I get a benefit from that. Yeah. That
If
goes
you-
into the state coffers, and I can build a new city park or educate my kids.
yes, the government will get that revenue.
Yeah.
If that's what you're
and
asking.
use it for the benefit of the rest of the people.
Yes.
So are we okay as a society benefiting off of a bad behavior? So a potentially addictive behavior. Is that something that we should be okay with?
I don't think so, because everyone who is vaping is a part of the society, and the things that they're doing are detrimental to their health and then detrimental to us because of the effects of the money that it carries over. So we would be losing, it would increase our insurance by 7%, which will take out thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars from your wallet for their actions, not for yours. Even though you don't smoke or vape, you're going to bite the bullet because of their actions. So we should be concerned as a society that they're doing this.
I guess more specifically, the tax is a benefit I'm receiving, and really I'm benefiting from somebody's bad behavior, right?
You specifically are just getting the money back that you would have lost.
Okay.
So you're not actually earning anything, but the state is, and then that will go into the public schools, like I said, and that's part of the bill.
So many states have recently legalized marijuana for recreational use. And so there you have sort of the opposite, right? You have something that was illegal being made legal. And one of the arguments that was made by many of those states was we might as well get the tax revenue that we can get from doing so. Did you look at any of those correlations to see sort of what have been the repercussions of that? Is there any correlation between legalizing these different forms of recreational use?
Looking into marijuana was slightly outside of my research, but I don't really have an answer for that. I'm sorry.
So I guess I remember being told from the beginning of vaping existing that it was very different from cigarettes. It was better. It was a good thing comparatively. Walk me through when you were talking about checking the box on the insurance form. If you are vaping, do you have to check the box that you're
Yes.
smoking? Was that a change at some point? Was there any pushback from vape manufacturers, or from the beginning, was it also considered smoking?
They are considered a smoker and are still considered a smoker today, so they always have to check that box.
So from the beginning, if you began to vape, you had
Yes.
to check, I'm a smoker? Okay.
All right, I want to talk about Connecticut. Sounds like they are doing it right. What was their prevalence rate before they increased the tax?
It was about 7%, and then with that 10% tax, they decreased to the 3%, 3.2% they're at now.
Okay, and when did they?
2019.
Okay. And there was nothing else that could have contributed over that little season that you can think of?
I mean, they have the same stuff we do, positive and negative advertisements, but they implemented the tax and saw the reduction.
Let me ask you about the numbers that you quoted for the specific bill. I think you quoted in 2020 it was expected to pull in about $16 million, and then going up to about $20 million in the following year?
Yeah, so 2019 it was 16.6, and then 2021 would
And of
be
course,
20 million.
those are estimates, obviously, because
Yes.
the bill didn't go into effect. Sounds like we're going the wrong direction. Why is the revenue going up if it's supposed to be discouraging vaping?
So it's not going to discourage it right away, but the revenue will start to decrease and tank when people start feeling that impact.
And long term, what maybe you don't, maybe they didn't make an estimate, what the long term sort of steady state revenue would be from this?
They expected it to decline, and that would be the goal of the bill, because with the increase in tax, more people would be falling off, and that will be declining the revenue, which is a good thing.
And was that with it assuming that it stayed at 10%, or that they increased the 10% over time?
It's staying at 10% because the bill doesn't actually really say that it'll increase. That's the piece that I added.
So if there were a state legislator here tonight and they listened to your presentation and they said, this is fantastic, we're going to do it, and it gets implemented tomorrow, what in your mind is the ideal outcome of that? This legislation is in effect, it accomplishes its goal, and that goal is what?
That it gets passed and becomes a law.
And let's say that happens, then what? What's your end target?
My end target is to completely free people from vape products, and by doing that through slowly increasing the tax and stair-stepping our way up, because the 10% tax will release the grip they hold, and then the increase in tax will kind of make everyone fall off from them. So that would be my ideal.
So let's say you're that same state legislator, and something new comes on the market, some new version of something to become addicted to with smoking or drugs or something. Is there anything that you would do, that you would advocate from a law perspective earlier, having seen the way that this works? It's the same trajectory for cigarettes, it's the same trajectory for vaping. What would you do, what would you implement at the beginning once you caught on that this was going to be the new thing?
When vapes were beginning,
Right, like if you know that this is the trajectory that vapes are going to have, it's the same one that cigarettes are going to have. If something new was coming on, what should the legislature be looking out for earlier than 17 years into the problem?
they would need to look out for these hospitalized cases and these deaths, and going into the vape and discovering that these ingredients are causing cancer, and they weaken our immune system and cause brain development defects, and they damage our lungs. Like popcorn lung is very common as a vape side effect. So I would start the tax if we've seen these health effects. If vapes were really just vapor with no nicotine and none of these bad side effects, then we would have to wait to see if they did turn bad. But since they did, then I'd implement it, and that's what we've been trying to do. It's just been taking a while.
And that's our time. Thank you, Sarah. All right, we'll be back at 7:35.